Hey everyone! Recently, back in March, I went to Switzerland for 9 days, and I decided to make a little vlog about it. My itinerary takes me around Switzerland with some day trips to nearby countries, so let's go! I arrived in Zurich early in the morning and wanted to take the train to Lucerne, where I planned to stay for a few nights. Being in Switzerland for the first time, I was a bit worried about the ticketing system at first, but it was easy to use. Swiss trains are also very reliable and comfy from my experience on this trip, so big plus. I got on the train and away we go. It was still a bit early when I arrived in Lucerne, so I planned to go to the hotel first to drop off my luggage, and then explore Lucerne a bit before heading back to check in for realsies. I figured that I could use the SBB app for public transport, and went exploring after I dropped off the luggage. This place is beautiful, and most of Switzerland is, but this doesn't mean that here is any less beautiful. Lucerne is a bit unique in having a very steep metro system that has an automated line. The automated controls are quite uncomfortable though, pretty harsh braking and not very smooth. In the afternoon I went to a few museums, like the Lucerne History Museum, the Roman Museum and the Olympic Museum. The Olympic Museum was kinda cool. It was the most interesting one out of all of them, but even then, I don't think it's quite worth the 20 franc entry fee. There were a few interesting exhibits in each, but I only went to kill time. The real prize for me were the views. I can really just look at it all day. I wonder if there's any sort of psychological benefits from growing up with the scenery your whole life, compared to somebody growing up in a big city. When I got back to the hotel, I was pleasantly surprised by the view the room offered me. As a tourist, I am thoroughly impressed, although I know living here long term might present a few more challenges.
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
The next day I planned to take a day trip to Geneva. However, when I got to the main station, it turns out that there were some issues which delayed or cancelled the trains to and from Geneva indefinitely. So on the spot, I decided to go to Bern instead, which wasn't in my itinerary initially. On the way, I picked out a few attractions, and when I got there, I was pleasantly surprised again at the local feel. Bern Old Town is exactly the kind of old European vibe that I wanted to experience, and I'm a bit ashamed to say that I was going to skip it in my original itinerary, and I would have definitely missed out. I spent the day walking around town. Barely thought about taking the public transport because the city center was very pedestrian friendly. Some stuff is under construction, but I suppose that's one con for traveling in the off-season. Went to the bear park and didn't see any bears. I realized then it was because it was cold as hell and bears hibernate in the winter. Oh well, I still got some nice views. Went to the Bernisches Historisches Museum,
Bernisches Historisches Museum,
or the Bernese Historical Museum, and for some reason, one of the English voiceover guys there was the narrator for Kurzgesagt. I'm not crazy, right?
The bronze has to be hard as stone. Gold may be a metal, but it's about 3 times weaker than steel. That's what the warrior demands for his weapons. And also very malleable, which makes it very bad mountain material.
There was also an exhibit on the life of Einstein. It was interesting to learn that he was quite big on the infidelity. I guess we all have our flaws. At last I decided to go to the cathedral and pay for the ticket to go up. The view up there was excellent as I had expected. After a full day in Bern, it was time to go back to Lausanne. Side note, it gave me a bit of language whiplash to go from a German-speaking part of Switzerland to a French-speaking part all in one day. But it'll only get more whiplashy when I go visit the Italian part later in the trip. On this day, the trains were working fine between Lausanne and Geneva, so I began my day trip there. I had planned to see the United Nations headquarters and the International Red Cross Museum, but ended up only going to the International Red Cross Museum. The museum itself was kind of boring, to be honest. I only learned one interesting thing, and that's that some countries don't like the cross, so in those places a crescent moon is used instead. I also didn't go in the UN area as it was a bit intimidating with all the security. It was like entering a different country with all the hassle. So I just had a look on the outside. What ended up drawing me in again was the view. Geneva had a lake view as well, and it also has a giant fountain, which was a sight to behold, and can be seen from basically anywhere in the town. It's worth mentioning that the fountain water in and around Switzerland is potable, very handy as a tourist walking around all day. After walking around a bit more, I was already a bit done with the city, so I went back to Lausanne with a bit of daylight left to take in the view a bit for the last time, as I was leaving Lausanne the next day.
What's popping?
This day was the one that I was looking forward to the most. I was going to Interlaken and then going up to the Jungfraujoch. The weather was clear and sunny, so that was even better. On the way I was already wild at the views. The weather going up was already cold but manageable. I brought all the cold gear that I used for Iceland a year or two ago, which turned out to be pretty handy as it only got colder and colder the further up I went. The train from Egerglescher to Jungfraujoch is almost all in tunnels, so there's no need to rush to grab a seat. The train stops for a few minutes at a viewpoint, and it's worth going out to see Izmir. Once you get up to the top, it will be a good idea to put on all of your cold gear. The weather was minus 10 degrees outside at the top, and it's easy to see that some people just weren't prepared enough, so they only stayed for a minute before heading back inside. After that, I went back inside and saw the rest of the exhibits up there, such as the Ice Palace. You can also go outside again, but this time on the real surface of the mountain instead of a metal walkway. I slipped more than once on a downward slope, even with the handholds available. Luckily, I didn't injure myself or break anything, but really, be very careful there. On the way down, I took the train instead of the cable car, which adds a bit more time to the journey, about 45 minutes, but I wasn't in a rush, and took in the views a bit. For dinner that night, I tried a fondue, a Swiss specialty which all my friends told me to try. I wasn't really a big fan of it since I don't really like dairy in the first place, but I tried it anyway.
You should treat yourself now!
Today was the day in which I planned to go to Lugano. It was another nice day. In fact, I think I got extremely lucky with the weather, as all the days which I was there to view the natural attractions had beautiful weather. Lugano was beautiful once again. There was a central park which had amazing views of the lake, lots of wildlife, and for some reason, a statue of the supposed creator of Bitcoin.
Buongiorno.
Today I wanted to go to Milan in Italy, which meant a cross-border train trip. The trains in this region are interesting because they are multinational as well. They have info about laws that apply in Italy as well as laws that apply in Switzerland. Although there's no hard border between the two countries, I could tell immediately once we had crossed from Switzerland to Italy. The best way I can put it is just that the infrastructure seemed to be much better maintained in Switzerland than in Italy. Arriving in Milan, we pulled into Milano Centrale. It is the biggest train station in Europe, and the scale of it is really hard to capture in video, but trust me, it is awe-inspiring. I had a few attractions that I wanted to see in Milan, so I set off for the metro. Now I had been to Italy, Rome to be precise, 2 years ago, and setting foot in Milan brought back the feelings that I had when I was in Rome as well. Namely, I had to be very cautious, keeping my guard up around everyone. Every other announcement on the metro is that I should look out for pickpockets, which says something about how the authorities see the issue. I was visiting the Duomo, a big church in the city, when a sermon suddenly started. Then I remembered that it was a Sunday, so of course there is Mass. I went to the Duomo Museum as well, and then toured around the city a bit, taking in the sights before taking a tram as the last thing to do before heading back to Switzerland. Overall, I'm just relieved that I didn't get mugged, pickpocketed, or scammed in the few hours that I was in Milan.
Grüezi miteinander.
Now it was time to say ciao to Lugano and head back to Zurich. When I arrived, it was about 1 p.m. and my hotel let me check in, so I left the luggage in my room and went out to walk the city a bit. The weather cleared up a bit, so I had a good time. My feet was hurting quite a bit at this point in the trip, so I took it a bit easy for today and only went to the Swiss Finance Museum, which was close by.
You are tearing me apart, Lisa!
Today was another full day in Zurich. After taking in some morning sights, I went to the Swiss National Museum, which had a lot of interesting exhibits, including an old globe, which was always a treat to find. Then I went to some free museums, which are located inside of a university, so I ran into a lot of students as well, as it was a weekday. I guess because it is off-season, so there were lots of roadworks in around the city, which again is one of the cons of going to places during the off-season. At night I went out again to buy some souvenirs, and take in the night sights a bit before resting for the day. So I decided the previous night that for my last full day in Switzerland, I will be going to Liechtenstein instead, a country close to Switzerland. To get there, I needed to take a train to Sargans, and then a bus to enter Liechtenstein. The border is across a river, and you can tell by the flags that you've entered Liechtenstein. To be honest, there is not much to see here that you can't see in Switzerland or the surrounding countries. The main reason people visit is to get a passport stamp and just to take it off the list of countries to visit for the novelty. I spent 20 minutes walking up the hill to Vaduz Castle, but apparently, since the Prince of Liechtenstein lives here, you can't go in. Unfortunate. So it was all the way back down again. Fun story, on the bus in, I saw a few other groups of tourists as well. I saw them when I went to the Liechtenstein Center buying souvenirs. I saw them when I went up to the Vaduz Castle, and I saw them as well when I was waiting for the bus back to Switzerland. I think it's funny that although we are all here separately, as tourists, we don't have all that much to do here, and we all decided separately that 2 hours is a good amount of time to spend here. Although my legs hurt a bit, since it was my last day in Switzerland, I wanted to do everything I could, so I walked around the city a little more, but it was absolutely freezing. The rainy weather didn't help at all. I managed to see the Opera House before returning to the hotel for the final time. The next day was the flight out. Overall, I loved my time in Switzerland, and I would come back anytime. Thanks for watching. It's my first time trying to make a vlog, and I hope it was at least half decent. I'll be getting back to streaming soon, hopefully, so ciao, hasta luego, matane, bye bye.